Welcome to Mr. Knuckle's wood shop. I'll show you how I put my in-floor radiant heat together. I don't know what I'm doing, so if you have a clue what you're doing and you know I did some things wrong or you have some advice for other viewers, please leave some comments down below because we can help each other out. So some questions that you may have if you're thinking about doing this in-floor heat system. Here are some questions that I certainly had to go through. A, do I want a tank or a tankless like I got? The tank takes up room, but it's cheaper. Do you want to go electric versus gas? Electric's cheaper to buy, but you have to have a lot of room in your system to put an electric water heater in. Zone isolation. In other words, you've got several different zones. I've got 4 different zones of piping in my floor. Do you want to be able to shut some of them off, or do you want them all to be running at all times? All right. There are probably more good questions, but those are some to start with. So you may notice right off the bat that this thing's not hooked up. There ain't no gas line, but I just wanted to show you this because why not? So the theory behind radiant heat, obviously, I'm sure you know this because you're here watching this video, is running hot water through the big concrete slab and creating a big thermal mass that provides heat to the shop. It's very efficient from what I read and from what I've been able to research. Another nice thing about it is it doesn't require any air movement, so you don't get dust blowing all over your shop. Next, rather than a tank, I went tankless just to save some space. Supposedly I've gone way too big, but that doesn't hurt. As long as you don't go too small, you're all right. I'll try and give you a super succinct explanation of what's happening here. When the system's running, not when it's to be filled, but when it's running, it's the glycol starts at the pump, goes through this line and into the heater. Comes out of the heater, hot water goes into the floor through these pipes, comes up from the floor from these pipes, and back to the heater. That's basically it in a nutshell. Here's the explanation of the filling process. First of all, you have a shutoff between the fill valve and the vent. Obviously, as you're filling it, the air in the system needs to go somewhere, so it's going to go out the vent. All right, the vent has to be higher than the rest of the system so it doesn't overflow. All right, this thing is only there for filling it so that all the glycol has to go that way and it doesn't interfere with the air that's coming up and trying to go out. You have a pressure tank to relieve any excess pressure that might build up over time and for whatever reason. As well, you have an air bleeder valve that just lets air out that might get caught in the system that doesn't go out during the venting process of the fill up. You need a pressure gauge. This is just for filling, all right? So that the water, the glycol, when I'm filling, is not forced up into the heater. When it's done filling, I'll shut this valve and then continue to fill the little bit that needs to go up into the heater. But during the regular fill process, just to get it to run faster, I've got this little bypass that allows the glycol to go straight into the floor. You need something to turn the system on and off when it calls for heat, and the switching relay does that. That yellow cord is actually going to plug into a live outlet and power the relay. The relay is going to power that outlet, which then will power the pump. One last thing we should talk about is this little unit right here. That is a condensation pump, and unfortunately I don't have a drain in my shop, and gas water heaters produce condensation and has to go somewhere, so it goes down through the one plastic tube down to the pump, and the pump pumps it back up. So obviously the condensation has to go out somewhere, and it's going out a hole that I haven't made yet, but it also has to be heated, so I'm gonna have to buy some sort of you can get a wire that you plug in. It's a heated wire that'll go down through the tube so that when it goes out it doesn't freeze in the wintertime. So let's talk pricing. Current prices. So I bought all this stuff, a year or so ago, right during the middle of the pandemic. The prices of everything have gone up, and you can't get half the stuff anymore anyways. I'm not sure which ones of these things you can't get anymore, but you know supply problems and the COVID situation has been just terrible, but whatever. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about pricing. In no particular order, the thermostat, $37. And these are either on Amazon or like Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever. I can't remember which ones are which. Expansion tank, $110. Tank isolation valves. These things here, they don't come with the tank itself. You've got to buy a kit, and that was $90. The air scoop, that was $95. These are all before taxes in Canada, so you're spending way more than what I'm saying. The pump was $111. The water heater itself, I looked, I'm not sure it's exactly the same one, but I got one for around $1,600. Again, this is probably bigger. At least my buddy, the gas guy, told me it's bigger than I need, but $1,600 sounds about right. The condensation pump, $87. The switching relay, $125. The manifolds, and speaking of manifolds, so you can get special manifolds where each of the zones, right, there are 4 zones down into the floor, and those are the pipes that come back. But I've got 4 zones, and you can get manifolds that have shutoffs for each zone, so you can isolate zones if you want. But those manifolds, the 2 of them were $134, and then there's a whole bunch of PEX fittings, galvanized pipe fittings, electrical wiring, etc. There's probably another $100, if not more than 100 right there. And so you're looking at about $2,500 plus tax in Canada. So the obvious thing we didn't talk about is the actual piping in the floor. And I can't remember what I spent on that, but that's a bunch of money. It's just PEX. I got a local guy in the area. He's actually a panel insulation sales guy. He's got a big operation, and I got the PEX from him. I also, what was very handy, he has, and maybe anybody can find it. I don't know if you can find it in your area, but it's a stand-up stapler that staples the PEX to the panel insulation. So you're going to put panel insulation above your gravel, and then the PEX goes on that insulation, then you pour the concrete. Well, you put obviously rebar and concrete reinforcement mesh or whatever, and then you pour the concrete right on that, and it surrounds the PEX. That's a whole bunch extra money. I hope this video has been helpful. I hope that you're willing to give it a shot yourself. I don't know what I'm doing, and I was able to put all that stuff together just with some research and a lot of footwork and time and effort. All right. I'm hoping my next video might be on how to restore a rusty old hand plane. I got this from my grandfather. He died 55 years ago, I guess, and somehow I ended up with it. It was in terrible shape. It was all rusted. Everything's, it wasn't sharp, blah, blah, blah. I've taken it apart probably 3 or 4 times now and tried to learn how to sharpen it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm learning, and I will learn, and I'll figure it out, and we'll talk later.